This is Not Worth Living, a podcast that features creatives interviewing themselves with a preset list of questions. Unlike other podcasts that feel like conversation between friends, this one aims to feel like eavesdropping on a psychiatrist's visit. Today's episode features...
Hello, my name is Derek Fisher, and I am interviewing myself for the Not Worth Living podcast. Thank you very much to Ira Rat for having me on your show. It's a pleasure to be here. I am a writer. I always feel funny saying that. I'm a writer from Toronto in Canada. I currently live in Vancouver, which is on the other side of Canada. I've been writing for, I guess, as long as I can remember. Although I'm really kind of taking it more seriously in the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years or so. And yeah, I'm excited to see what kind of things come out of me on this little self-assessment. So the first question is, what makes you tick? I don't know, in some ways this is the hardest question. What makes me tick? I have no idea. Everything and nothing. My relationships with the people I love certainly makes me tick. I get a lot of energy from them. I've always been an introvert. COVID kind of changed that. Being locked down, Toronto was really locked down hard. So being stuck in my tiny apartment for 2 years forced me to become an extrovert, but I still derive a lot of energy from the people around me. I don't know what they call that, an introverted extrovert or something. I have no idea. Another thing that makes me tick is this deep-seated belief that there's no meaning in anything. I know that might sound like kind of dark or nihilistic, but for me, it's actually a very happy thought, truly. I don't really feel that anything has any inherent meaning. And so it's a very freeing feeling. We can ascribe meaning to whatever, but it feels like the universe is just a bunch of dust and particles, and we just happen to be floating through it. And I think about that all the time. And yeah, that always makes me feel free, and it kind of makes me want to keep going. So I would definitely say that makes me tick. Would you open an envelope with your death date? 100% absolutely fucking not. All of you maniacs that answered yes to this question, you're out of your mind. No chance in hell. I would light it on fire instantly. I would throw it off a boat. I would put it down the garbage chute. I would bathe it in acid. I might hand it to a stranger on the street and let them deal with whatever's in there. Maybe I'd give it to a family member. Well, I guess that's kind of cruel. And they would open it and know. And someone would tell me, no, I don't want to know. I don't understand how anyone would want to know this. It's baffling to me why anyone would want to know their death date. Totally baffling to me. Maybe I just don't understand other people. Anyways, what was the first time you created something intentionally? I do remember this quite distinctly. I was very young, like 5, 6, 7 years old, something like that. And I wrote this little book. It was kind of like a picture book. I drew stick figures and wrote a couple lines of handwritten text. The drawings and my writing looked like shit, I'm sure. And my parents were very proud of me. And it was clear to them that the story I had written was kind of scene for scene the story of the film Willow. I had just plagiarized Willow. But at that young age, I didn't know that plagiarism wasn't the same thing as creating something. Maybe that means I didn't really answer the question correctly. But that was definitely the first kind of thing that I made. What keeps you motivated? I suppose I have to answer this question differently than the question of what makes me tick. As a writer, I think the number one thing that keeps me motivated is just engaging with other art, writing, but also film, music, and visual art. All of the art world really energizes me. When it comes to writing specifically, there's a number of books that I've read in my life that whenever I think about them, I'm just so happy and I just feel so capable. Just knowing that those books exist reminds me that we can do magical things with words. And rule-breaking things. I remember when I first I joined a writing group a long time ago that I'm still a member of. And when I first joined it, I remember like doing some like slightly unconventional things in my writing and getting pushback from some of the members in the group saying, oh, you shouldn't do that. Agents won't like that. Publishers won't like that. You got to kind of draw within the lines. And I never bought that. I always felt that just seemed like bullshit to me. That, all the best work breaks some kind of convention. And so I've always gravitated towards books that do that. And, I think now about some of those books that have been really important to me. For instance, Grace Krylanovich's The Orange Eats Creeps, which is a great little kind of sort of horror-ish experimental text that I just absolutely wonderful writing. Dark and stark and colorful and creative, and it's a hard book to describe. But whenever I think about it, I just get filled with this surge of energy, this surge of joy, just knowing that it exists. Blood Meridian does that for me. Knowing that book exists fills me with that same kind of energy. There's lots. Wittgenstein's Mistress by David Marks, and some stuff that's a little bit more conventional too, in terms of just like being a big publishing house kind of book. Jennifer Egan's book, A Visit from the Goon Squad, has that effect on me. That's a Pulitzer Prize winner. But I just love it. I love how every chapter is structured differently and takes on a different form. I love anything that does stuff like that, whether it's in this like very hardcore, super, super hard to understand experimental way, or in a more approachable way where still most readers can get it. Stuff like that really motivates me. Music's a big one. I almost always write to music. I write to all kinds of different types of music. I'm sort of a metalhead by trade, raised the metalhead, but I listen to a lot of noise and weird stuff while writing. That definitely motivates, like discovering new music motivates me as a writer. It makes me want to like write to whatever the new thing that I'm discovering is. Lately I've been into a lot of this new wave of post-punk. So bands like Soft Kill and Boy Harsher and Lesser Care. I've been writing with them in the background a lot. So like discovering new music really, really keeps me going. Body Void is a band that I've had them on while I'm writing a shitload this year. Body Void's this just great American sludge band, super heavy, just fucking great stuff. I hope that answers the question. Who inspires you at the moment? Ooh, that's a good one. In terms of like other writers, like people kind of currently in the scene, I think I usually find myself the most inspired by the writers that I'm consuming the most of. That sounds a bit funny. That sounds like I'm eating them. I'm sure the writers that I'm about to mention would be tickled by the thought of another writer saying that they want to like literally eat them. I think that the two people that I've been reading the most of over the course of the last year are probably Charlene Ellsby and Gary Shipley. I really love both of their work, both of their bodies of work. Very different writers, very, very dark and super interesting, kind of funny. I find Charlene Ellsby's work quite funny. I just read her book, Violent Faculties, and absolutely, absolutely loved it, but it did have me laughing quite a bit. So I'm definitely inspired by her work and also by how like prolific she's been lately. Like I find that just seeing authors who are really productive really inspires me, because I'm so not productive. I write like, I don't know, one sentence a year, or at least that's what it feels like. I don't write every day, not my long shot. So seeing writers who are super prolific, I really like that. Gary Shipley too is, another writer who has a big body of work. His stuff is very weird. I absolutely, absolutely loved, was like gushing reading his book, The House Inside the House of Gregor Schneider, which I think was from last year. Just like one of the fucking weirdest things I've ever read. I love anything weird. I love things that are weird for the sake of being weird. I don't care if it feels like experimental for the sake of being experimental. I don't give a shit about whether that word is a good word to use. Experimental, some writers don't like it. They find it inadequate. I really don't care. If it's weird, I'm interested in it. I will give it a shot for sure if it's weird. And Gary Shipley is someone who seems obsessed with the weird. He seems obsessed with the concept of meaning. I know I brought up meaning earlier. Shipley's work all seems to be interrogating this idea that human beings need to make meaning out of their lives. All of his work seems like that. It's like geared towards understanding how we make meaning out of things, and then finding the most fucked up, violent, sick and twisted ways of distorting our approaches to meaning. I think that's what his work is about. So yeah, I'm very, very inspired by him. Another writer I've been getting into a lot the past year, Audrey Satz. I'm super inspired by her. What a badass she is. Her work is just fucking vicious. I love it. It's so, so good. What's your latest project? I've recently started 3 things. We'll see if any of them go anywhere. One's a short story about a relationship between like a young couple that are really into each other, and one of the people in the couple has a very, very extreme cannibalization fetish, where it's not even really a fetish. It like completely consumes her every thought, and she meets a boy that might be the one who can finally eat her. That's just probably going to be a short story. I'm working on 2 also kind of short novel length things. I just started both of them, so they could be trashed tomorrow. One is about 3 people that come from another planet they're very human-like, from a very advanced planet that travels to other planets and assesses, the past of that planet just by excavating and trying to like look at the history of the planet. And basically I intend for this book to be kind of like, I don't know, 40 some odd thousand words of 3 people just wandering an empty landscape and finding nothing. I want it to be like just super desolate, just like 40,000 words of nothingness, Earth with nothing left on it. This would be like thousands of years after humans have gone extinct. It's just about the relationships between these 3 people, to be continued. And then the other project, which is the one that I've done the most work on, is a novel takes place in a kind of a very fucked up apocalyptic version of our world, some big city where the sun has gone out. It's kind of in the same world as my book Nightlife, which came out last year with Posthuman Magazine. That book takes place in this kind of a setting with a city where the sun's gone out permanently. So everyone is kind of losing their minds a bit. Everyone's very hedonistic. The government's super authoritarian. There's lots of violence, but there's also this like lack of care about everything. Like people are just kind of almost happy to die because they know they're going to die soon. And the world just goes on living this way, but we don't see the end. So it's kind of like this prophecy that can't be fulfilled, right? Apocalyptic living in a non-apocalypse, something like that. Anyways, I'm writing a new book that kind of takes place in the same world, but it's got a bit more of a story to it with, this guy who's like a 6 crime investigator who falls in love with a sex robot, and then she disappears and he becomes completely obsessed with trying to find her. He doesn't know at first that she's AI. And it's just I don't know. I don't quite know what it's going to be, but that's the basic bones of it. I guess I give lots of detail away about these projects. Some writers maybe answer this question like, oh yeah, I'm just working on a new thing. It'll be a book. We'll see. It's about 2 people. Like some people don't want to give anything away. It doesn't bother me at all to just tell you details. You can all steal it if you want. I don't care. If money was no object, what would your dream project be? I have no idea. I don't really want to do any artistic projects other than write books and short stories. So money isn't really an object because all I need is computer or even just a pencil. But I guess I've said the question out loud, so I should take it seriously. If money was no object, let's see, I'd hire a few like movie directors and force them to work together, like a big one like Spielberg, and then like a really cool one like Jonathan Glazer or Claire Denis. Yeah, I would get Claire Denis. I would get her and Spielberg to work on a kind of a hybrid remake of both Jaws and Beau Travail, and then I would make them get in a plane and like project the like opening night of the film. The plane is like flying over the ocean and projecting the film onto the body of water of the ocean. And so the audience has to be on like a speeding boat that's like so fast that it can keep up with the plane. And if the boat falls behind a certain speed, then the boat blows up. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck I would do if money was no object. I have no idea. I would just write more. I would like not work. I would not have a full-time job. I would just write more. But then again, not that I was going to say I like working. That's a lie. No one likes working, but I appreciate work because I work in pretty social environments. And I know that if I just sat at home all day writing and didn't have another place to go, and I would just be, by myself or like with my partner, I'd probably lose my shit pretty fast. So yeah, I would work like 1 day a week and then just write a couple hours every day, I think. I don't know. We'll see. Is there a quote or motto that you work by? Yes, there is. There's a quote that I've said to myself for years, which is, how the hell do you tell a story anyways? I would always say this line to students, like when I was teaching creative writing. I don't know exactly where this came from. I just said it to myself one day and it stuck. But I believe that every work of writing, whether it's very conventional, plot-driven, or like super experimental, like, John Treffery, crazy stuff, I still kind of think of it all as story, even if the really experimental stuff is certainly not story-driven in any kind of an obvious way. But to me, the word story fits. It just works for me. I think of any, I look at a building and I see narrative. I think of music as a story. I think of a really basic abstract, or I shouldn't say basic, but a really abstract painting to me is that there's story behind everything. And so I think every work of art is in some way asking itself this question, okay, how do you tell a story? And I think that works of literary modernism or postmodernism, stuff that was very intentionally trying to do something different and break rules, they were just trying to find a new way to answer this question of how do you tell a story? And so I often say this to myself if I'm writing and I look at the work I've just produced and it feels too basic or too obvious, or like I'm beating the reader on the head a bit, and I think, okay, how do you tell a story? There are ways to tell it that are more interesting than this, that are less obvious, etc. That quote often helps me. Would you be friends with yourself? I think so. I don't know. I think I'm cool enough. Am I friends with cool people? I don't know. I might, if I sat in a room with myself, we would probably talk for a bit and then just go completely quiet and stare at each other and stop speaking. And that could get old fast. So I don't know. I have to think about this one. What do you do differently from other people? I'd like to think that I do everything differently from other people. I think the truth is I probably do very little differently from most people. Or at least, there must be other people out there doing it the way I'm doing it. I don't know. I like to think I think about the world differently than other people, but I don't really know what other people are thinking, not deep down. It's a very hard question to answer. I shave my own head. Most people don't do that. I guess most bald people probably do. I don't know. I yank my neck hairs out. I think there's probably like a condition for that, like a psychological condition. Most people probably don't do that. Yeah, I don't know. I sometimes just start drumming in the air, but like a really heavy blast beat, and I'm making sounds with my mouth. That sounds like I'm crazy. I think most people probably don't do that. What would you like your epitaph to say? I don't give a fuck what it says. I'll be dead. I can let anyone else pick. It wouldn't really matter to me. Well, that's the end of my self-interview. Thank you very much, Ira Rat, and Not Worth Living podcast. I hope my voice doesn't sound fucked up. Thank you for having me. Goodbye.